institute building approaches as a kind of first thought process, and not necessarily the entirely only V School, but that may have a combination of multiple other universities that Nandagopalji did mention. When in fact Vikram Sarabhai started for the conceiving the seeds of IIM Ahmedabad, and maybe later on, maybe Ravijay Mathai, who was one of the first director of IIM Ahmedabad, or maybe Samuel Paul, and many other people. And likewise, many, I'll say, you may find some of the nuggets of maybe different business schools, including in ISB or other, because there cannot be one simple black and white formula that only this works. But certain core part, you will find it is going to be, largely common. So there may be a bit of repetition here and there, but I'm sure, I think you have to live with it. And the screens before you will allow you to hide to some extent. That autonomy has given the opinion in this hall. So the students have to do that, right? So when we also sit on the learning side, here we can't do anything much, but there you have the autonomy to do it to some extent. Just to going back to the first slide, you really find the institution building approaches. So that I can be on the side and I'll block the screen. So you really find when you're talking about institute building approaches outside in and inside out. Now herein, we must keep in mind, even companies do this. Companies look at their own company's outlook from outside world towards inside. And one of the examples which is, I'm sure, Upendraji, Nandagopal and my colleague also must have witnessed in DVAC, about when ICICI Bank did this exercise, including KV Kamath, or today's SEBI chairman Madhipuri Bhuj, Vaidyanathan, and many senior Ram Kumar Gurdev or head HR of ICICI Bank. They took few of the academicians out of country to Singapore, and from Singapore actually they had almost 3 days discussions, deliberations, that what are the expectations of education industry by the world, maybe within India and outside India as well. And so sometimes I think we ourselves need to follow certain approaches which may be applicable to corporates, which may be applicable to us as well. Because today self-finance institutions, largely you may find the self-finance institutions are like corporates. We are a totally self-finance business school. Absolutely from scratch, we have to think of our entire investment plans, top line, bottom line, like any other corporate. And in case if we are not doing well on any program, we should think of closing the program unit. We can't just think on the only socialistic pattern, otherwise you can't survive, you can't attract good talent, you can't really pay back people about all 6th pay, 7th pay, and 8th pay around the corner. You can't really respect that unless until you run the organization successfully. So here you will really find, when you're talking about outside in, clearly we need to look into, do we get a sense of voice of the customer? Do we get a sense of value creation for the customer while doing outside in? And customers can be multiple. The customers can be internal customers can be external customers for us from business school point of view. And in that, when you're talking about inside out, probably look into your own, I'll say, capabilities, look into your own competencies as an institution, as people said, as well as. So how we can develop a product or services which will cater to the needs of the market, needs of our customer. If our customer happens to be industry, then how we can cater to the industry's needs? Because industry needs are far more dynamic than the way in which we change the curriculum. It's quite possible. And likewise, you'll also find, in terms of, suppose some of the institutions have thought of social space or social challenges, social problems as a kind of their own priorities. Then how you can cater to that space as well. And when you're looking into internally even when we're looking at students or maybe faculty or staff as internal customers, how are we looking at them? So it depends on how broadly we take it forward. Now, if you connect this with, I'm sure many of you must have read Jim Collins' Good to Great. Like, good is the enemy of great. That's what we always try to say when you try to build the institutions. And in fact, Jim Collins also wrote one of the good book on Built to Last. How you can create the enduring institutions and which will really deliver the value to the customer or to the society or to the market. And Jim Collins also did a survey, in fact, and work on Stanford University on BHAG, Bach kind of principle thought process, and which I'm sure Anand Mahindra also mentioned on many of occasions before they develop even the RISE. So in terms of big, hairy, audacious goals, may probably this kind of thought process I have gone into it. And because I worked with Mahindras for 9 years, I'm not a hardcore teacher in the beginning. I worked with Mahindras for 9 years, and then again for two and a half years after my MBA, I used to take over 6 companies and I used to turn around with a team of few professionals, and including listed company. And after close to about 11 years of experience, I came to academia. So probably I had my background from that point of view. And in that context, when I look at even Mahindra as one of the very respected company in the country, and I've seen Keshav Mahindra's days way back in 84 onwards for almost 9 years. So Keshav Mahindra used to always say that we'll not make cars or we'll not make jeeps or tractors. We'll build an empire for entrepreneurship. We will build an engine for entrepreneurship. So that's the kind of purpose that why we talk about. I'm sure you must have read many of the times good videos of Simon Sinek. When Simon Sinek's video speaks first about why, that why part is very powerful, and which probably most of the time we ignore because we are aware of what and how part of it. So that why which is so much deep into it. And while working out this kind of thought process, definitely, I'm sure people do look into, at least Mahindra did look into the time frames always for delivery day in and day out, be it assembly lines, get into reflections part of it, and that really works well. The first is just outside in and outside out. Second one, I'm sure strategic plan, which all of us, all management teachers normally get into it in terms of their objectives point of view, outcomes, measurement and control, which is really known. And look at the 7S model, we look into it also very closely. Normally M&A point of view, budgets and acquisitions point of view, these are used very actively. But you will really find what is really the most challenging. The bottom part, which maybe I think, sorry the font size is small, but the bottom part is soft part of it, and soft part which is mentioned is skills, staff and styles. And the top part is hard part of it, be it strategy, structure and systems. And it is normally being said that soft is hard and hard is soft. And I'm sure you're aware of, because soft part is talking about skill, style. Those are areas that are very difficult. It's not easy to manage people. And I'm sure my colleagues who are sitting here and all of you must be aware of, to manage anything, managing people is very challenging. It's not easy. There's no human being is going to be homogeneous. There are always heterogeneity, always you're made to work through opposable minds. And when you're trying to raise the bar, always, you find it is very challenging. Because you, as a leader, if you happen to be a leader, and I'm sure Nandagopalji mentioned quite a bit about leadership as well. So when you happen to be a leader, I'm sure you always bring in a way discomfort to the people. Leader has to raise the bar, leader has to deliver day in, day out, be quantitative outcomes, qualitative outcomes. So you really find kind of, this Mechanism 7S model, we look into it a bit more closely as well. And appreciative inquiry, in fact appreciative inquiry 4D model, some of the faculties use 4D, 5D, different models again. Even for NEP point of view, in one of the presentations recently, I had the Bombay faculty use that in terms of discovery point of view. And they try to discover what you're really looking forward to with respect to your own why part of it. Build up your dream around that. Design the thought process and taking it forward to deploy. So I'm sure there are 5D also which exists. So I'm sure, I think from the institution building point of view, you will also find with some of the institutions, maybe in political space, one of the institutions which is brilliantly being built with the current, in fact, our Honorable Prime Minister or RSS when we refer to, when you talk about Karyakartas or volunteers, Pracharak, you will find that is not an easy job. There is sacrifice, there is a kind of commitment which is there, and they understand the kartavya as well, they understand the duty as well. And it is not just one organization, there will be multiple organizations, more than 60 plus, which works parallelly, concurrently to build the nation. That is their thought process, but that is also like an institution building, which is not a simple task at all. We are quite, actually, when V School come into picture, I'm quite passionate about the VG's model as well. The VG's 3-box model, at the cost of kind of reiteration, I'm sure my AIMS colleagues have heard me on many occasions, but you will really find this particular model is very important. Managing the present is the box 1. While managing the present, we must look into our own productivity, our own cost reductions, our own raising the bar overall from the outcomes point of view, because which is required. Unless and until you manage present, you can't just focus on the innovations. And which is largely popular for innovation, maybe like the innovation group. But you will find the second box which is there.